Okay, here we are on this lovely misty gray morning. And so we will have a strap for today. And I don't think we need, I don't know, we might need 2 blocks. So a strap, a block or two, and let's get started. So let's see, I'm going to get a matching block there. And we are going to start lying down, Supta Baddha Konasana. So, soles of the feet together, knees out to the side, but not with a block under the shoulders. That is the default for today. However, if you really feel that you would like to do the block under the shoulders, you could go ahead and do that. All right, so when you don't have the block under the shoulders, you get a longer, straighter line from the tailbone out the top of the head. It's a little bit different stretch there on the inner thighs because our pelvis is flat with a little more space between the hip bone and the thighs. When we're on the block, it arches us up a little bit. But if you really would like to open that upper chest, if you feel like your shoulders and upper back need that, you can put the block under the shoulders. Meanwhile, here we are. Inhaling into the lower belly, exhale, pouring out the inner thighs, out the knees. Down through the sitting bones, up through the top of the head. So even as we're being relatively easeful here on the floor, that breath is moving with a subtle energy on through our inner body, pouring out, making more space. And just breathing here. Maybe noticing subtle or not so subtle changes as we continue to stay here and breathe as our body settles a little more deeply into the shape. Then let's engage a little bit more actively in our shape. Flexing the feet, pressing the soles of the feet against each other, really feeling the outer edges of the feet along the floor, especially a little press down on the outer heel. And reaching a little more actively through the inner thighs, pressing the outer knees down so the gluteus maximus will engage a little bit there. So you don't want a big clench up, but a little bit of work there. Pulling those outer thighs in toward the sitting bones, pulling those outer thighs down toward the floor, and then a little drawing up through the core and out the top of the head. And we'll interlock the fingers, turning the palms up to the ceiling for a moment, grounding the shoulder blades into the back and into the floor, and then stretching those arms up overhead. 2 long parallel lines from the base of the hands out the sitting bones. Maybe a little stronger, more active breath. Inhale, expand and make space. Exhale, deepen into the space. Couple more breaths here. And then sliding those legs out straight. You can release the hands and take a little indulgence, stretch out along the floor here, maybe a little squinging or wriggling side to side. And then softening a moment again, just letting your weight rest into the floor. And then we will make our way up to sitting. So let's see. We're going to put the belt near the front of the mat. And then we'll also put our blocks up near the front of the mat. Okay. And here we are sitting in Sukhasana, the crossed legs. And using those arms alongside, lengthening up, getting space between the vertebrae, space in the hip sockets. And slowly releasing with the arms, letting the hands rest on the knees, lengthening up through the center line, pouring down the sides of the neck off the tops of the shoulders. Inhale and exhale, really letting go of the rest of the day. Just being here in your body with your breath. And then we'll reach out wide through the collarbones, through the fingertips. Inhale and exhale, breathing those arms up and breathing them down. Let's do that 3 more times. Really feeling into your shoulders, into your body. And then changing the cross of the legs and coming forward and over. Breathing into the back of the body. And then we'll walk our hands over to the right diagonal, nice long reach along the left side. And then through the center over to the left diagonal, long reach along that right side. And coming back to the center. And then coming up through the spine vertebrae by vertebrae, back up on top of the sitting bones, inhaling and exhaling, arriving here in this moment. And then let's come on to all fours. And we'll do a few cats and cows. Really breathing into your spine, maybe a little front and back. And then we will finish with our cat and cow rippling, taking a nice long pull back into child's pose. And from up and downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Walking the dog, or anything else you want to do here. And then finding the best downward facing dog of this moment. And lengthening that downward facing dog out to the plank, long and flat against the ceiling, or using kneeling plank if you want, as we take approximately 6 deep breaths here. And 6, 5, 4, feeling every breath, and 3, 2, and 1. And then we'll set the knees down, taking a pull into child's pose again. And then coming back up onto all fours. And we're going to clamshell. So bringing those legs right together, big toes touching. Long and flat against the ceiling. So we're still doing the plank in the front half of the body. And hinging the right leg out, keeping the toes together on the floor there. Probably not a big range of motion. Feeling that steady press out with the outer right thigh. Staying right up on top of your left leg. Try not to lean out to the left. And then a big inhale and exhale, squeezing the right leg down. 4 times, hinging out and in. Inhale, pressing out. Exhale, drawing in. And once more. And then we will extend the left leg back. Left leg with the toes tucked under. Take a little press back into the heel. And then don't let your right shin pivot. Keep the toes pointing straight to the back of the mat as we pivot up onto the right leg in sort of a kneeling side plank, but even more an Ardha Chandrasana half moon on the floor. We'll press forward, body forward of the tailbone. And we're engaging that right gluteus maximus, using that clamshell sort of a feeling. And maybe lifting the left leg up. And bringing that left leg down. Coming back to all fours, taking a sit back in child's pose for a moment. Coming back up onto all fours, and we'll do that on the other side. So strong neutral spine as we hinge that left leg out in the clamshell. So it's not about a big range of motion. Not necessarily about a big feeling in the gluteus maximus and outer hip. It's a smaller sensation deep in the hip joint. But as you might notice, as we hold the leg here, if we keep pressing out assiduously, it actually can get kind of intense there. And then inhale, exhale, squeezing that left leg down. 4 out and in. Inhale and exhale. And 2. And 3. And 4. And we'll extend the right leg back with the toes tucked under, pressing through that heel for a moment. And once again, not moving the shin on the left leg. That's what's going to make that left hip joint have to work really hard there. Don't let it slide and shift, and then we pivot up onto our left leg. Makes the balance a little challenging as well. Really press that tailbone towards your body, front toward the side of the mat. And then maybe lifting that right leg up, like a half moon kneeling on the floor. And then we'll step that right leg down, back to the front, sitting back in child's pose. And sliding forward onto your stomach into the Sphinx. Pulling back with the elbows, pulling back with the hands. And maybe there's a little bit of lift of the elbows or lightness, pulling back more with the hands. Don't let the shoulders come up or round in, or going high is not important. And then coming down, Deep breath. Now you get to go high as we indulge in cobra, our way back to downward facing dog. Be a little cat and cow rippling along the way. And then there we are, downward facing dog. Ah. And let's go through the vinyasa, any version you want. Forward to the plank, chaturanga or not, upward facing dog or cobra or something light, and downward facing dog. And let's lift the right leg up, reaching long through the heel. And bending the knee, dog at the high fire hydrant. And through to the lunge. And we'll bring that left knee down, coming up in a Jayasana, the kneeling lunge. Inhale up the front, exhale, pouring down the back. Lift a little bit more up through the lower waist. And then circling those arms all the way around and back up overhead. Namaste in front. And we're going to Matsyendrasana. Walking our right foot a little over to the left, pull that left knee under. Or you can straighten the left leg out in front of you, get in here by whatever means necessary. Standing on the sitting bones and on your right foot. Right knee to the ceiling, and we'll twist to the right. Inhale lots of space and exhale and twist. And back to the center. Disentangling the legs, coming up onto your feet into the forward bend. And concave back halfway up, using as much bend in the knees as you want to. And then pouring back over. And coming up to standing, big front body yawn. And around to Namaste in front. Namaste, steadiness. And coming back over. Big lift up. And diving over. Concave back. Folding over, stepping back with the left leg, so we're in the right lunge, and we'll come into the warrior number 2, the lateral lunge. And then feeling a little of that clamshellness to keep that right knee over the right foot, pressing out with the outer right knee and thigh, pressing back, long line through that right inner thigh. And then bringing the right arm up, little right sitting bone anchors down into the dancing warrior. Little side bend to the left. And then triangle, GentleVinyasa, hinging over. And so we have sort of a side plank position in the upper half of the body. And while our left foot is safely on the floor, still see if you can find some of that work in the hip from when we pivoted onto the knee sideways down there on the floor. A little more strength and engagement in that, deep in that right hip joint into the outer rotator muscles. And coming down to the lunge, stepping back to the plank, through the vinyasa, any version. And then we will do that around on the other side. And lifting the left leg up. Bending the knee dog at the high fire height. And through to the lunge. And then we'll bring that right knee down and Jayasana, the kneeling. Or lift somewhere from the lower waist. And circling the arms around to back up overhead. Namaste in front. And then that's Andrasana on the left side. So we walk our left foot a little bit over to the right of the mat to bring that right knee through and under, or however we got here. Standing on the sitting bones, standing on that left foot. And we will twist to the left. Inhale and exhale. And coming back to the center, disentangling the legs, coming up into the forward bend. Breathing here. Concave back halfway up, folding over. And coming all the way up to standing, big front body yawn. And around to Namaste in front. Samastiti steadiness. And coming over, big lift. And diving over. Concave back, folding over, stepping back with the right leg. And we'll come up in the warrior number 2 on the left. Really pressing that left outer knee back, but not so much you peel that foot off the floor. We keep the big toe grounded into the floor. And pulling wide and flat in our warrior 2. And then bringing the left arm up, anchoring the left sitting bone down, and up and over into the dancing warrior. And into the triangle, Trikonasana, tilting over. And then seeing if you can relate this shape to when we were kneeling and pivoted to the side after the clamshells. A little more engagement in that left hip joint, a little more outer rotation. Maybe the tailbone doing a little press toward the side of the mat a little bit more. And coming down to the lunge, stepping back to the plank, vinyasa, downward facing dog. And then let's go to our upward facing dog. So we're going to stop and hold our upward facing dog, focusing on that as our back bending pose, coming forward to the plank. And then the pelvis doesn't drop down, though it moves down. The tailbone scoops down, forward and up, and then a little feeling of pressing back from the upper back. So in the upward facing dog, we're thinking more vertical line through the top of the head to the ceiling, rather than trying to lean back a lot. Well, there's a press back with the upper back. So if you can't hold with the knees up, you can always set the knees down. And then we're trying to pull our weight up away from the base of the wrist, pressing more through the knuckles and fingertips. Abdominal muscles making a hammock on the front of the body. And then letting the knees touch down if they didn't already. Contracting up a couple cats and cows. And sitting back into child's pose. And let's come up to downward facing dog. And you can go through a vinyasa or not. And we'll lift the right leg up. and through to the lunge. And this time, let's come up in the warrior number one, grounding that left heel down, trying to square yourself to the front of the mat and come. And then coming down, and as if we're going to step forward, maybe into Matsyendrasana, but we're going to take our left leg through and come to sitting on the floor with the right leg bent, or however we get here. So left leg is straight, right leg is bent, long through the top of the head, and we'll get our belt. And putting the belt around the right foot, extending that right leg up. And then rolling down to the floor, contracting shoulder blades in the back, legs resisting, coming down with as much control as you can. And then here we are on the floor. Supta Pada Gustasana number one, breathing along the back of both legs. And belt into the right hand, bringing that right leg out to the diagonal side. Ah. And keep trying to stand on the left leg. And there, here too, can you connect this to the clamshell and into the side rotation? So the right leg was the one we were kneeling on. I'm feeling a little extra open as you pull that left hip bone down toward the floor. Maybe a little bit more engagement there, deep in the right hip joint, in the right gluteus maximus. And bringing the right leg back up. And we'll come back up to sitting, pressing the way through the leg and belt. Up, maybe using a little momentum as needed. And then we'll set that right leg down and pulling our legs in, coming up to the forward bend. And a concave back, halfway up, folding over, stepping back with the left leg. And we'll come into the warrior two again on the right leg. Tracking that right knee over the foot. And dancing warrior, bringing the right arm up. And this time we'll come up in Ardha Chandrasana, though you could do the triangle again. Getting your block maybe under the right hand and coming up. Left hip bone lifting, holding on with that right gluteus maximus. And you do a clamshell with your right leg, an isometric clamshell. Let's step down to Utkatasana, the chair pose. Ah. And then releasing over. If you have the two blocks, getting the two blocks there, coming up with as much of a flat back as you can. And we'll lift the left leg up like a supported warrior three. So left leg's going back up in the air, and I'm standing on the right leg again. And then we're going to see if we can get to Ardha Chandrasana from here. Make sure your right hand is at a diagonal enough from your right little toe. And then just like we did on our knee, we pick that left hip bone up, pivoting up onto the right hip, and then bringing that left arm. Let's step back down to Utkatasana. Sitting in our chair. Twisting to the right, nice wide arms, and then bringing the right hand around to Namaste. And Namaste in the center, reaching forward, sitting back, releasing over. Concave back, halfway up, folding over. Through the vinyasa, back to downward facing dog. All right, let's see if we can get all the second side in on that. All right, so we are in downward facing dog. And lifting the left leg up. Through to the lunge. Coming up in the warrior number one. And breathing here. Taking a little time, just feeling your breath. Just being a little bit. And then coming down, stepping forward and through with the right leg. And we come to sitting with our left leg bent, right leg straight out in front. And belt around the left foot, extending the left leg up. And then we'll roll down to the floor, resisting with the legs, shoulder blades anchor in the back. And as gracefully as possible, coming down, we land on the floor. It's Supta Padangusthasana number one. Inhale and exhale off the back of the legs, out the top of the head. And then belt into the left hand, taking that leg out to the diagonal side. And then a little bit more focus here as we reach through our right leg. And see if you connect this shape, it's kind of a long connection line there to that kneeling on the floor and pivoting to the kneeling half moon. As we pull up and open through that right hip, maybe a little bit more engagement in the left gluteus maximus, going deep into the left hip. Like, could you do a clamshell with that left leg here? Coming back up to the center, and we will roll ourselves back up to sitting. And setting the belt aside, coming up into the standing forward bend. Getting up there on our 2 feet. While we're down here, just checking your block position. Use the 2 blocks, kind of want them at diagonals there from your feet, or maybe just the 1 block by the left hand, or maybe no blocks. And then a concave back, halfway up, folding over. Stepping back with the right leg, and coming up in the warrior number 2 on the left. Tracking that left knee over the foot. And dancing warrior, bringing the left arm up and away. And this time we'll come up to Ardha Chandrasana, the half moon. Though you can use the triangle again. Shifting the weight up, maybe a block underneath the left hand. And there we are. Going from kneeling Ardha Chandrasana to Ardha Chandrasana. And then we'll step down to the chair pose. Utkatasana. And then releasing over, maybe bringing the blocks in, 1 for each hand or the fingertips on the floor as we lift our right leg back up into a supported warrior number 3. Long and flat against the ceiling. So this is like when we were kneeling and we extended our right leg back with toes tucked under. And then here we go. Picking that right hip up, rotating onto that left hip, working deep in that left hip joint into the gluteus maximus there. Feeling that clamshell work in the left leg. And coming down to the chair pose just in time. Twisting to the left, wide arms. And then hands around to Namaste. Namaste in the center. And let's come up to standing. Big front body yawn. Pressing the arms down and around to Namaste. Inhale and exhale. And let's breathe the hands up the center line into a big front body yawn again. And once more round and into Namaste. Samastiti steadiness. And then we will just come down to the floor. So, as always, not enough time on that clock. Well, I'm torn. There's several things that would be good to do. Well, you can choose something on your own, and we will, I'm afraid, cut our Shavasana sort of off at the end, but there at home, you can stay in Shavasana afterwards. So let's go for another back bend would be nice, but so would the figure four. So let's go with the figure four. Reaching through the triangle, pulling that in. So this is stretching out all those muscles, doing that clamshell work. And then we'll set that side down, other side, crossing the left leg over, reaching through the triangle. Let's see, well, we've got another minute or two. So let's grab our block, doing a supported bridge pose or any other back bend you want to do. And so we will sort of end here on our recording and all, plus in the studio here, there's some people coming in at 10:30. So here we are on our block, opening the front of the body. And if you have more time holding this for however long, maybe doing a bridge pose unsupported or any other back bend. And then perhaps another lower back release, like knees to the side as needed, and into Shavasana. Or being as Shavasana-like as you can here. Inhaling and exhaling. And thank you for coming to class today. Thank yourself for being here, taking the time to get onto your mat, for taking as much time now as you need to finish for yourself and not feel your practice as incomplete.